Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. It's not a show that is going to be, let's say, the nicest because things that are happening in this country, they are sad, they are crazy, they are immoral, they are inhumane, but we are going to cover that. We are going to cover a story. We are going to cover a story about a woman who lost a family member because of the insanely immoral inhumanity of the healthcare system that we have in this country. Look, everybody on TV right now is talking about Russia and Trump getting off scotch-free from collusion, and that somehow he may even get off scotch-free from justice and whatever it is that they call that, something justice, when you it's obstruction of justice or something like that. I don't care. I really don't care. The fact of the matter is the plutocracy wants Donald Trump, and they will do nothing to hurt Donald Trump, because as we make fun of Donald Trump, as we laugh at Donald Trump, as we do all these things with Donald Trump, guess what's happening? They are pilfering us all. Before I said I wasn't going to get into Russia, but I want to just remind you of two things before we get into the meat of this program. Here is the deal, folks. Remember this. This is very important. Trump was never, ever, listen to me well, Trump was never, ever going to get hit on this thing. And why wasn't he going to get hit? Because they love what he's doing. If they have a choice between the left of the Democratic Party that is saying, let's get things done for humanity, let's get things done for people, and they had a choice between that and Donald Trump, even establishment Democrats, the leaders in the party, I guarantee you they wouldn't say it aloud. But they are the wards of the plutocracy. They are the wards of the oligarchy. They are the wards of the wealthy. They are the wards of the people who in this country count. And they will also be for Donald Trump. So the only time we are going to make a difference, the only way we are going to make a difference is to get out there, hit the pavement, and get people involved. Get it to be that they have to do what the people want, because they can't pick up arms. My friends are the Appalachians. My friends are the ghettoan, the people in the ghettos. My friends are the people in the barrios. The barrios, the ghettos, Appalachia, the stereotype that I'm trying to tell you that. Let's not let them pit us against each other, because they are all screwing us. Let's realize that. If we get that, what happens with Russia, what happens with Donald Trump doesn't matter. What matters is that we get together, work together, and then beat the system. And we can, because we have... It's still a democracy, and even the people who have arms or middle-class folks like us or poor folks like others, even those people, listen to me well, folks, listen to me well. Even the armies, the folks that have arms, they are us. The biggest fear of the plutocracy is everybody's going to realize that they are us. They are us, and they cannot and will not win. So let's get with the program. Today's title, the title of the show today is Alycia Ramirez witnessed a healthcare system that killed. Need Medicare for all now. The subtitle of the show is Her Mother-in-Law Did Not Have to Die. Our healthcare system killed her. Alycia Ramirez tells her story. Medicare for all is our only option to bring humane health care. And before I give the preamble to the show, I want to remind you guys of something. This is an important piece that I'm going to play here because it tells all. about what we're in for with this type of health care. I never forgot when this congressman went on the field, when this congressman went on the floor and said this. Remember this, folks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You may recall that a few weeks ago, President Obama came to this chamber and he addressed the chamber on health care before a joint session of the House and the Senate. During that session, I was privileged to be here and I saw my colleagues on the far side of the aisle, the Republicans, waving pieces of paper during his speech. And I was wondering what they were. I couldn't imagine. It almost seemed like they wanted President Obama's autograph. I heard from one of my colleagues that this is what they called the Republican health care plan. I went over after the speech was over. I picked up a copy that was lying down on the Republican side, and it turns out that the Republicans' health care plan was a blank piece of paper. I inquired further, trying to find out exactly what the Republicans' health care plan is, and it's my duty and pride tonight to be able to announce exactly what the Republicans plan to do for health care in America. The Republicans' health care plan for America: don't get sick. That's right, don't get sick. If you have insurance, don't get sick. If you don't have insurance, don't get sick. If you're sick, don't get sick. Just don't get sick. But I think that the Republicans understand that that plan isn't always going to work. It's not a foolproof plan. So the Republicans have a backup plan in case you do get sick. If you get sick in America, this is what the Republicans want you to do. If you get sick, America, the Republican health care plan is this: die quickly. The Republicans want you to die quickly if you get sick. Now, the Democrats have a different plan. The Democrats say that if you have health insurance, we're going to make it better. If you don't have health insurance, we're going to provide it to you. If you can't afford health insurance, then we'll help you to afford health insurance. So America gets to decide. Do you want the Democratic plan or do you want the Republican plan? Remember, the Republican plan: don't get sick. And if you do get sick, die quickly.
Now, let me tell you, folks, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. In fact, much of it has gotten worse. There are still people getting bankrupt. There are still people dying. There are still people who just don't have health care. But the one thing Americans are good at, they suffer in silence. Well, you know what? Let's wake up. Come on. Come on to politics done right. Let's tell America you no longer must. You no longer must suffer in silence. You must no longer fear going out there and demanding what is yours, Medicare for all. Do not ever fear. Do not fall for the crap. Do not fall for what they're going to tell you. Do not fall for socialism. Do not fall for this is going to hurt you. Do not fall for government takeover. Do not fall for death panels. The death panels is already here. The death panels are the insurance companies that deny you coverage. The death panels is our system proper. That is the death panel in America. No other country, poor or rich, has a system like this that murders people legally. A healthcare system that murders people legally. Many times we talk about policies in the abstract, not realizing that in fact they are impactful in the everyday lives of millions of Americans. Healthcare policy at some point will affect every single American. So for those of you who are easily going against those people who are demanding Medicare for all, remember you are next. Remember when a drug costs $100,000 and the insurance company decides they're never going to pay for it again. Your home, that's even if you're living in a $500,000 home, $1 million home, or $100,000 home, until you go broke and poor, it's going to be saying, we are going to, remember what I gave, that long speech I gave about whatever the market will bear. That is our healthcare system. You will pay whatever the market will bear. In other words, we'll extract every penny out of you. That is how we price our products. That's how we price our medicines. That's how we price our procedures. That's what it is about. So, folks, Alycia Ramirez unfortunately saw this firsthand. Their health insurance situation, or lack thereof, was real. Her mother-in-law care was directly proportional to her ability to pay or get outside of the health insurance system. Getting sicker afforded her no level of compassion in our system. If you cannot pay or you are not lucky to get outside assistance, as the congressman says, you are relegated to one and only one thing. Remember that. It doesn't matter who you are. You are relegated to one thing. You are relegated to death. I do not say that lightly. You are relegated to death. Remember that. I don't care how rich you are. Well, if you're very rich, you'll never have a problem, because the market, whatever the market will bear, you can bear. But for the average person, folks, let's hear the story. Well, today I'm here with Alycia Ramirez, and this is not a happy interview, but this is an interview that we must have. One of the things that I've always believed is that we have to personalize stories, because a lot of times when we look at things, we're looking at them in the abstract. Should we have Medicare for all or not? That's sort of an abstraction. The reality, it is more than an abstraction. It has value to people, and it affects people's lives materially. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Mrs. Alycia Ramirez. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. We got some sunshine out here, so it makes the day a little better.
So where are you located?
I live right outside Seattle. That's just easier for people to recognize because, when I say Seattle, everyone knows where it is. So this is where I'm from, the beautiful Pacific Northwest.
Okay, well, you are an immigration activist. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, before we get into the subject at hand, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do?
So my husband is a DACA recipient who came here from Mexico when he was about 7. And that's actually the main reason I got into activism and then fell into immigration activism, was ultimately to protect my own family and to bring awareness to what we go through in our daily lives, how these policies that come out of the government affect us. And along the way, I just became more involved and seeing kind of the trauma that people go through on a daily basis makes me want to fight even harder.
Now, you have any kids?
I do. I have a 5-year-old.
You have a 5-year-old kid.
Yes.
And did I understand you to say your husband is a DACA recipient?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, let me ask you, before we get into the subject at hand, how does it feel with all the transitions that have occurred with the new president that we have?
It's really unfortunate that this happened, but if you look at his rhetoric of the president we have now, it's not a surprise at all. What's unfortunate is that a lot of the policies that have come out of the federal government have impacts that will last generations. For instance, the way our immigration court functions now it's at the breaking point, and a lot of it is because they're overloaded from all of these cases that they're getting from people who are being picked up without, the only reason that they're there is because they don't have papers. And then what we're doing at the southern border, all of those things are going to be, they're going to be around for a really long time. And my ultimate goal is that people become aware of that so that when this president is out of office, we'll be motivated to keep fighting.
Well, excellent. Now, the reason that I contacted you is a friend of mine on Facebook sent a video that you put out there, and the video, I woke up this morning to that video in my inbox, and it was a touching video. And at first, it almost brought tears to my eyes, but secondly, it got me pissed off, because what's occurring in this country, people just don't understand that there are people behind it. There are human beings behind it, and it's life and death. And when it's your own, it means something. So why don't you first tell me your story? Tell me the story about your mother-in-law from the beginning.
So my mother-in-law, she's always been sick. She has been sick since my husband was a kid. She had diabetes for many years, heart problems. She was under a lot of stress, which the doctors have said made her conditions even worse. And the last few years, we noticed a pretty serious deterioration in her health. She was very weak. She couldn't walk up the stairs without assistance. She would get out of breath a lot. She'd be in pain a lot. And that kind of got worse over the last 2 years. And she was told that was problem with her heart. She had some kind of blockage in there. And at first they told her, you should be fine. Just take these medications, and that should go away. And she just kept getting worse
Let me
and,
stop you
and
there for a
worse.
second because that concerns me. You said that somehow she did a test. She went in for a test or something, and they did find a blockage.
Yes, they did.
And after they found that blockage, and by the way, when she went into the doctor at that time, was she paying out of pocket or how was that handled?
So she is completely undocumented. She unfortunately just, because of her situation, just did not qualify for any kind of legal status. So that made her ineligible for things like Medicare or Medicaid, which income-wise she would have qualified for if she were a citizen. So she was relying on charity care, clinics that will go by a sliding scale. She would just have family members write letters saying that, hey, we take care of her. She has no income. So that's really what she was relying on. She didn't have any kind of really specialized care or a cardiologist like she should have had.
So, in other words, they told her that, well, we know you have a blockage. They really don't have the resources to stent her at that point in time or anything. So they just try to medicate her
Yeah.
as best they could.
Yes.
But if she were a person going to a hospital, she would have had real care, and that
Right.
okay, I want there. Let me tell you where there are some people that are listening to, and remember, our audience it's not going to be just a friendly audience. So I want to remind our audience of something here. Those that are not very friendly, because your mother-in-law was an undocumented person. If somebody goes to France, if somebody goes to England, if somebody goes to these other countries, right? Whether they are citizens or of that country or not, and if they come down with something, guess what those systems are allowed to do? Take care of the persons. They're a humane system. They believe in humanity. So for those of you who are thinking, well, she's from somewhere else, remember how many Americans have been to Panama? How many Americans have been to France and all these other places and had gotten care without having been to be a citizen or resident of that country? Reciprocity, one would believe, is something we could offer. Please continue, Ms. Ramirez.
Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, they basically tried to see if that would solve the problem over time, and of course it didn't. And with her being, she also did not speak English very well. So on top of that, there is a language barrier there. So she's relying on other relatives or friends or staff to translate for her, which I'm sure also created gaps in her care. After a while, she would just get so sick that putting laundry in her, putting a little laundry in would cause her to get really bad pains in her chest. And finally, on New Year's Day, she called my husband and told him she needed to go. She was going to the emergency room because she was very afraid. She was having a lot of pain. She was afraid she could die. So we rolled her into the emergency room. They admitted her that night for stenting, and we visited her the next day. She was in a lot of pain, and we said our goodbyes, and we went home. And my husband got a call that morning about probably 6 o'clock saying her heart had stopped during the night. She had slipped into a coma, and her chances of survival had dropped quite significantly. And she passed away within about 24 hours. She was gone. And what is angering to me and some of the family is that we found out after the fact that there were so many holes in her care. She didn't have a cardiologist, which was insane for how sick she was at the time. The doctors kind of just seemed to be shuffling her along and just giving her medication after medication. They weren't treating the problem, and she wasn't able to get good care because she was uninsured. And there are just so many things that went wrong along the way that if she would have gotten the proper care, she would have gotten the cardiologist, she might be here today. And that's what really enrages me a lot when I hear, especially the discussions against Medicaid for all, is that there's a human cost to that. and no one should have to go through that. No one should have to gamble with their lives. That's not right.
And the sad thing is that this didn't occur overnight. This is something that had been going
Yeah.
on for years. In other words, that there were so many places along the way that this could have been mitigated long time ago, and just having her go in and out. I mean, I think you take a look at how in this country we treat dogs and we treat pet pigs and we treat all these other animals. You wonder why is it that we can't treat human beings with a little bit more dignity. Now tell me, how did your mother-in-law get over here, and how long has she been in this country?
She came, I think she came in the mid to early 90s. So she had about 9 kids. So the older ones came first, and then she went back for the younger ones a few years later. Around the late 90s is when she got the rest of the younger children and crossed with them. So she'd been here for a really long time. She'd been in like a child care maid before that. Like she took care of people's children. She was a nanny. She did a lot of those kind of jobs for many years until she just couldn't work anymore because of her health was so bad.
Now, if I understand it correctly, she came over here. She did a lot of those jobs, and she was never a burden to society.
No.
She actually took care of herself and her family with the jobs that she was doing, and probably did it on at a rate that was lower than many others, which means whereas people have a tendency to believe, and this is where we get into your immigration activism, where people tend to believe that immigrants are a net net negative on the country. The reality is the mere fact that they work for wages that are less than what American propers would work for. They stimulate the economy as these people that use them can actually go off and do some other things. Isn't that correct?
Right, yeah, and she raised all those children by herself, alone. She had to work 3-4 jobs. That is what she did. And the thing that most people don't realize is undocumented immigrants do pay taxes.
A lot.
Yes, they do.
And
they
they
just
play
don't. Yeah.
what they don't. And I sorry to cut you, but it drives me crazy. I'm an immigrant from Panama, Central America. It drives me crazy because what most people don't understand is those folks that come over here find that they have to work that much harder for that much less when coming to this country. And yes, the taxes that they pay are what's called regressive taxes. Sales taxes, and name the rest. You know them quite well.
Right, and there is, I remember what the number is. So the government actually gives undocumented workers what's called, I think it's an ITIN number, if I'm correctly, which is basically just a number to pay taxes. It's a tax code number. So they pay quite a bit into, like, millions and millions of dollars into the system. They just don't get anything back because they're not citizens.
What a lot of people don't understand as well is that illegal. Hear me about to mention that word that should never come. Undocumented workers actually are a great sustenance to the Social Security system because they are paying in a hell of a lot of money from a whole lot of employers that are putting that in, and they will never ever take out Social Security. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's the sad part, and I think it's not convenient for some people to talk about that because it takes away from the kind of the propaganda of immigrants are a burden, which is what we're hearing a lot of, unfortunately, with the administration and the rhetoric that we currently have. And they do, for instance, when my husband was undocumented before DACA, he paid taxes every year and got nothing back. And I'm really hoping that with this Medicaid for all and this kind of Medicare for all that and this kind of broad talk about immigration, people will start to realize that these two things are not only interconnected, but there's so many myths around both.
I mean, it's interesting because what folks don't understand when folks are talking, trying to put a negative on policies like Medicare for all, they would say, "Oh well, we want to keep undocumented workers out. They want you to be a citizen," as if you have measles, if measles decide if you're in the United States and have measles, if it decides what nationality you are before it spreads from one to the other, it is sort of what's the word that one would want to use? Ignorant to sit back and believe that healthcare is not a national problem for everybody within that sphere. In other words, it should have very little to do with immigration or anything like that. If you have an immigration problem, let the immigration problem be solved, but it shouldn't cross over into healthcare or whatever, because again, measles or these different diseases know not whence they came from.
Right. And speaking of healthcare, the really sad thing about that is it's really kind of become, our healthcare system is so bad that it's become now kind of a public health crisis in itself. For instance, I know people who are diabetic and are rationing their insulin because they can't afford, for whatever reason, to pay the ridiculously high amount it is for their dosage for the month. And or people like me who, for instance, I got sick with a bad flu, for instance, last year, and just the doctor visit alone put quite a hole in our
Budget.
budget for the month, and because I'm not insured, and what happens with me is when I am prescribed medication when I get sick, is I find myself having to cut back on the dosage because I just can't afford the full dose, and that's
Let's
not good.
explore. Let's explore that. Are you saying that right now at this point in time you're uninsured?
Yes, I do not have insurance. I've been insured for, I believe, the last 2 years. We're one of the people that got priced out and pushed out of the healthcare exchange. It just, I mean, it's gone up. I think in the last 2 years, our premiums have gone up 40%,
Right.
and we were barely able to afford it before it jumped 2 years ago.
So nobody in the home is insured at this point in time?
The only one that's insured is my son, and that is because for our state, what we call Medicaid for Kids, which is Apple Health, has a much higher threshold for income level.
Right.
And with that, we're just barely hanging on, and by barely, I mean we barely made, like, we're just at the level where it would be the cutoff. And for me, I'm currently going without insurance, which is really hard when you have a condition that you have to monitor for the rest of your life.
And is that something you can mention?
Yeah, so I have hypothyroidism because my body doesn't produce enough of the thyroid, which is a pretty manageable thing. But when you don't have insurance and getting to the doctor is very expensive, it can be very hard to manage. For instance, when I have to go get checkups, I'm supposed to go twice a year, and I'm finding myself having to go once because a doctor visit for me without insurance is about $150, and that's a big chunk of change.
Right. I mean, and that is a sad thing because by you not getting your regular checkups, by you not taking the amount of medication that you're supposed to take, it means that this lack of that hormone is having a negative effect on other organs of yours. Is that correct?
Um, I wouldn't know at this point, and I wouldn't be surprised, but like, I am lucky that it's not a fatal disease. I don't
Right.
have something that could kill me.
Right.
But I could get, I mean, it does affect my life if it gets out of hand, and which is frustrating because I didn't choose this,
Right.
and no one chooses to be a diabetic, and no one chooses to have heart disease, and you're basically, the insurance companies are basically gambling with your life, and that's not right.
It's the entire system that is gambling. I mean, it is a shame. Now, you mentioned the price of medication and taking less than normal. Just a few weeks ago, we did a blog post and a program where we found out that insulin hasn't changed in over 100 years, and the price of production has not changed. In fact, with the magnitude with scales, it should be cheaper. It turns out that they just decided that they needed to increase the price by 1,700%. A vial that used to cost $21 now costs $300.
Right. And that's part of corporate greed, and why, for instance, the Purdue family is now being sued is because we don't have currently any oversight that's regulating this. It's just these big pharma companies, the insurance companies are, calling the shots, which is where a lot of the propaganda against this push for Medicare for all comes from. It's not in their best interest to have a public health system because they lose a lot of profit.
Alycia, it's even a little bit more demonic than that, in that these people actually knew that these drugs, what is it called? The drugs that these people are addicted on in throughout the country, the opioids, they actually knew that the opioids were addictive. They attempted to sell it as not addictive, and then one of these companies decided to say, we can sell these things that are addictive and then sell the drugs that help get them off of their addictive state. Is that evil?
It is. It is evil, and for me, it makes me very angry. There was actually an article that came out that made me so angry that I immediately took out my computer and started writing, because the article was about Subsidies, the company that made Subsidies, and it had come out that the company that made Subsidies, the same thing as Purdue family, knew it was dangerous. They knew it was killing people. It killed 900 people. It was responsible for their death in some way, and yet we're pushing. They even made, this was what enraged me the most. They even made a rap song to promote this drug in their company, bragging about titrating, which is basically titrating is increasing the dosage when the doctor gradually increases your dosage. For me, that's enraging, because I have known people who my age who have gotten addicted to drugs like this, to the heavy, the heavy narcotic drugs, and got hooked on heroin, and some of them died that way. So for me, when I see things like that, it makes me so angry and enraged to think that they're laughing at the deaths of people that I've known, that I've grown up with, who got hooked on their drugs and died because of consequence.
Well, that is a state of our economic system. Remember, our economic system is designed to maximize profit for those who have capital. So, that is just where we stand right now. And until we change that, and the only way we change that is to have the stories of real people out there come out where it actually affects them. Because when you hear it on MSNBC or CNN or Fox or whatever, it sounds like this abstraction that everybody is looking at and not realizing what happens. And then when it happens to any one of these particular people, then somehow we can get the change that we know we should have. So, Ms. Ramirez, why don't you tell me a little bit about what I am. First of all, I'm sorry to hear about your mother-in-law. What do you intend to do going forward? That video was a good start as far as you entering now from being just an immigration activist to now also being a Medicare for all advocate and activist. What's your goal going forward?
Ultimately, I know it's too late for her, but it's not too late for someone else. And that's something that I'm ultimately, one of the reasons why I decided to finally come out about this, was because stories can be powerful and they can change lives. And what I plan on doing is kind of the same thing I've done for immigration, is just keep talking about it, keep having the public discussion on Medicare for all, why we need it, just talking as much as I can about it, getting other people to tell their story. Because stories are infectious. Words are powerful when they're coming from, the people around you. And ultimately, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful to see a system that we will have Medicare for all the next 10 years. And I really want to be a part of that movement to make it happen. And I'm determined to do that. And I know that my mother-in-law would be proud of me right now. And I'm sorry, it's kind of an emotional topic, but ultimately, I really wanted to make sure what happened to my family does not happen to another family.
Miss Alycia Ramirez, that was very important for people to hear. Yesterday, I interviewed a young lady who said, I asked her for some advice as far as how can we make a difference, and I said, make the statement for activists. And she said, Egberto, let me tell you something. It's not about making the statement for activists, because we all have to be activists. And you are proof positive that the day after she tells me that, you have turned your tragedy, you have turned your story into a story for us all. And I want to thank you so kindly for coming on with me at this late time, coming on with me just on a whim after doing your video, because your story means a lot to a whole lot of people, because that has been replicated. Your story is a story that's been replicated over and over again, and until Americans realize that this is the reality that many are living through, nothing is going to change. So thank you so kindly for having been with Politics Done Right to let us know your story and to
Thank
make
you.
this story a story for all of America to hear.
Thank you for having me. I really, I'm hopeful that someone will hear this and will be touched to also act. And ultimately, that's my goal throughout everything I do, is to touch the people around me, because, a little ripple turns into a big wave eventually if there is enough.
You're absolutely right. Alycia Ramirez, thank you very much. Thank you so kindly for having been with us. Okay, folks, that was Alycia Ramirez. We all feel her pain. We know the corporatocracy doesn't feel her pain, because it is the pain inflicted by them. It is a pain that they have paid politicians to ensure continues. And I want to be straight about that. This isn't a time about let's be nice in the way we say things to these guys, because that is border in on evil. When you are supporting policies that kill. And again, Alycia Ramirez, mother-in-law, is just one example. I mean, I can tell you examples over examples. Look, I have been lucky. I had in having a company, being able to afford insurance, and later on when I decided to go into full-time activism, my wife was healthy enough that she could go ahead and get a job that offered health care. We are the lucky ones, but like I tell her all of the times, you never know. Because as things get worse, they get worse. As this extractive economy continues, it has to continue extracting. And, talking in that format to many Americans is not, a lot of people just don't understand. They think, I get up in the morning, I take my shower, I put my clothes on, I go to work, and everything is okay. That's how a lot of people think, right? That is all they think. And you can't blame them. That is what we were taught. We were indoctrinated from the days of the Powell Manifesto to believe, listen to what the man has to say. Don't think on your own. Don't wonder how comes you are the ones doing the work and these other guys get to play. How comes you are paying premiums for health care and you have the president of the health care company getting $14 million? Where did that money come from again? That is your premiums that they decide to hold on. And how do they hold on to as much as they can? By saying, Miss Ramirez, Miss Gonzalez, Senor Rodriguez, Mr. Baker, Mr. Johnson, Miss Chang, Miss Lee. No, you cannot have that procedure. And you know why? Because as much as I can deny you a procedure, as much as I can deny you medicine, I can have a bigger fat check to live in my gated community away from the pollution that's coming from the fires in the dumpy areas of town where you guys must be relegated to live, where I get my money from polluting your areas, but I can always go to my little country club. I can always go to my little home. I can do these things. That is the definition of the system of the economy that we have today. And it is one that is affecting most people. But you know, enough people are living comfortable enough to guard the gates for the evil ones. And those people that are guarding the gates, they don't know. They are just as indoctrinated as you are. But they were the chosen to make enough to guard the gates. And you see, even some of the folks that are on, that some of our trolls, many of our trolls sit back there and they're fighting for this capitalist structure. They're fighting to make sure things stay the way they are because this is how they were taught. This is how they were indoctrinated, and they're going to fight for it. They don't realize they're peons. They're just a face. They're just the face that these people use to keep it up. That executive out there that think he's doing just fine, so he has to fight to keep this system. Why does he have to fight to keep the system? Because they told him, I think, you're going to be okay. So screw 80% of Americans. 80% of Americans live in paycheck to paycheck. Screw them. Because we have you guarding the gates. And to guard the gates, we pay you well. Of course, you're not going to become multimillionaires and quasi extraordinarily rich like the 0.1% or the 1%. But come on, you're in the 20%, man. You'll do fine. Folks, we have to revamp this thing completely, and it takes education. It means that we all have to become the media, like Miss Ramirez that we had today, like Miss Goldfield that we had on Friday, like the people we bring onto this show, both politicians that are progressive, both people that are activists, both just your average Joe Blow. Just your average Joe Blow. We have to take the system. When Donald Trump talked about take America back, he's right. But you see, he was a joke. He was a joke. He was telling people the truth. Let's take America back. But that's not what he meant. He wanted to say, take America back to put me in so that I can give the plutocrats the country and screw you. And at the same time, I'm going to tell you, look at all those black people. Look at them brown people. Look at them poor white people out there. Yeah, you don't want to be like them, And look, folks, I'm telling you, what we have to do as a people, black, white, blue, Chinese, whatever the hell you are, is realize we're all in the same boat. We're all the same. DNA-wise and all. We have to get together, folk. And we have to remind you that it is not humans that are affecting us. It's a very minute amount of humans with an evil belief in what an economy is supposed to be that has no problem killing you with a healthcare system that is murderous. They have no problem killing you. And they will create all kinds of dissension to keep it. But it's not only healthcare. Look at the fires we had in Deer Park. That is a company that has been cited over and over and over and over again. But Donald Trump is saying release regulation, loosen regulation. And our TCEQ, our form of the EPA, does very little to control the major companies that are screwing us all. Go to Pasadena, Cancer Alley. So they don't mind polluting and causing illnesses, but at the same time they're causing illnesses. They don't want to pay to cure you. So these oil companies and other chemical companies, they'll throw stuff in the air, throw stuff in your soil, throw stuff in your water, get you sick. And then when we talk about, well, we should have healthcare for all, at least the honorable thing to do is if I'm making you sick, if I'm polluting your environment, if I'm polluting your air, the least we can do is say, okay, let's support Medicare for all, man. We're getting off scotch-free from making these people unhealthy. Let's at least give them Medicare for all. Dang, we're screwing them, man. Let's give them Medicare for all. Because we're making them sick as it is already. But folks, give me 2 minutes here to make a plug. But stay with me because we have a lot more to talk about. Give me 2 minutes. I'd love for you guys, please become subscribers to Politics Done Right. Patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Please become a subscriber. You subscribe, you get the book that I'm writing right now, How to Make America Utopia. 2 chapters are already online. As I write a chapter and throw it online, you see it immediately. You log in with because you're a patron, you log in and all is good. So please go ahead and consider it. And of course, you get access to absolutely all of the books that we write. The current one that's out there full and ready to go, it's called As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. You learn a lot from that book. I guarantee you, you learn how this system really works or how this system doesn't work. So please go to patreon.com. It's right there on the screen for those that are listening on podcasts and those that are listening on radio. patreon.com/politics done right. And of course, you know, I just lost a whole bunch of weight a few years. Well, I've been keeping it off, all that good stuff. I have a new book out called Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. Say no to the snake oil weight loss. That book, you can also, oh, by the way, all these books you can get at Amazon.com as well, okay? But please, the best thing I'm asking you to do, subscribe to Politics Done Right. We need your support to keep moving and teaching and informing and telling you things that you're not going to hear on MSNBC, CBS, and all these other stations. We need to be able to tell people the truth, because all of this you're not going to get on TV. You're not going to get that Donald Trump, that what we just had with Donald Trump was a farce that I knew was going to happen, and I wrote about it at dailycoast.com. Dailycoast.com, the number one liberal website in this country that you must go to, dailycoast.com, DAILYKOS.com. I write there, and many people write there great stories, dailycoast.com. Don't forget to visit that site. But folks, it is important to support what we're doing. It is important to support what we're doing. Without your support, this is not going to survive, because this is a calling. This is the calling that I feel now is essential if we are really to move this country forward. Many of us have dedicated to doing this. Many more of us have to dedicate ourselves to doing this. And why? Because, folks, we have an entrenched plutocracy that has the money to flood the airwaves with things to have you screw yourself. Anyway, going back to the topic at hand. Oh, let's see. Going back to the topic at hand. Let's see. Go back. By the way, this is a call-in show. If you want to give us a call, please feel free to call 646-716-5812. If you want to add to the discussion, please call 646-716-5812. Again, Alycia Ramirez's story. Her mother-in-law, sick for several years, being treated on medication even as she needed then stents, but because of our healthcare system, our fraudulent, evil healthcare system, could not. America, people, I'm asking you this. Over the next few days, all you're going to hear about is Russia, collusion, no. Obstruction of justice. That is not the story. One of the things I've continuously wrote about at Daily Coast is to say, forget about Russia, forget about Stormy Daniels, forget about all those things, because they affect you not at all. The plutocracy wants Donald Trump there, and Donald Trump will be there as long as he continues being what we all know he is, which is a useful idiot. We know that. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory. That's just what he is. That's just what he is. And I didn't say that. A progressive person didn't say that. The business people said that. There was a meeting recently, 100 businessmen, or I don't remember how many businessmen, sitting down in a conference room. And they were saying, we love Donald Trump, even though he's an imbecile. He's there getting all the attention from the news media because they're just like him. They want the eyeballs, and they think people want, he's talking crap. People love to hear crap. They like this reality TV, all that kind of stuff. So therefore, we'll go ahead and listen and point all our cameras on Donald Trump. And at the same time, the businesses, the plutocracy, the oligarchy, they are pilfering us all. They continue to play with our regulations. They continue to dump the mercury from the coal mines. They continue to dump the benzene. They continue all this stuff. Again, what I'm saying, please don't just take it at face value. Unless you trust me. When you build your trust, I don't know, for those newcomers who don't know me and have to build a trust in the words that I say, one of the things that I constantly say is, my goal to you is not to misinform you as TV does. My goal to you is to give you informed information, informed, dedicated, data-driven information that you can go ahead and take to the bank. That's my goal. Every now and then when I screw up, I have no problem in coming to you and telling you I was wrong, why I was wrong, how a mistake was made. That is what it's all about. That is what I promised to do. That's not what you get on TV. That's not what you get on MSNBC. They are going to twist it. You know, today, a reporter, what's his name from Vox was on TV with Johnston and Gold. I don't remember the other reporter's name, but he was saying he attacked the mainstream media for this Russia thing, and he said, "Why am I attacking them? It's not that I don't know the reality. The truth is, Donald Trump is likely the most corrupt, immoral president America has ever had." And by Rachel Maddow and all these others concentrating so deeply to make Russia a story, it means now that it is going to be very, very, very difficult to get Donald Trump on the real evils that he has done, on the real crimes that he has committed. Because people are going to be, well, look what you said it was about Russia, and look at what happened with Russia. Now, do you think we're going to believe you? And they said, and they were right. It makes it that much more difficult. So he was right. I was listening to the Brazilian reporter. Well, he's not Brazilian. He's an American reporter with Vox who lives in Brazil with his husband in Brazil. And you know, I mean, you just sit down there and you listen. How screwed up. And then I sit down a lot of times and I say, you know what? This is not at all an accident. Chaos is good. With chaos, you can create a lot of trouble. You can create a lot of profits with chaos. And keeping a chaotic media, keeping a chaotic president, the people that are sitting in the background doing things right now, they can pilfer you dry. And that is exactly what they're doing, people. That is exactly what they're doing. So as we are fighting among each other, as we are talking about racism, as we are talking about all these isms and the sexism and then the alt-right and all, look, all of those things are real. But there's a story that I'm thinking about blogging about that I want to blog it, but I want it to be a well thought out, fairly long blog about why I don't mind having my friends as the alt-right and the racists who want to kill me and all that good stuff or want me out of the country. And you know why I said, you know what, the reason I gave that I'm giving in the little pieces that I've written so far is because I understand where they're coming from. Believe it or not. This system has so screwed people, it has screwed them too. When you grow up thinking that you are so much more special than anybody else, whose fault is it when you realize you're not and think there's something that they're telling you now you got to fight for that somebody else has taken from you? You can take two options to that. You can just say, you creep, you lousy racist, who the hell do you think you are? Or you can understand the pathology and try to work within the pathology and make a change and a difference. I choose the latter. I choose the latter. You know? Because I understand. I understand that we can talk and we can scream at each other and all of that. And if we don't come from a special place of understanding, neither one's going to change and nobody's going to be able to analyze what is really going on here because we were played. All of these guys, all them guys in Appalachia are being played. And they like their guns and all of that. But they're being played. You know, and if we do the same thing, we're playing too. I have different ways of approaching problems and different thought processes, right? And my thing is, we've been working at this stuff for a long time. And one of the biggest things is the hypocrisy with which we work with these problems. And my thing is, no. Let's understand people. First of all, if you come from the premise that we are all equal, which it's the premise I come from. And if you come from the premise that there's nothing intrinsic within or inherent within any person that makes them either evil or not evil, then everything else there is imparted in them. And if you really believe that, if you honestly really believe that, even though this part of your brain is telling you to react negatively, this part of your brain, the strong part of your brain, the part of your brain that is in the intellect, can tell you, hey, put the animal part aside. Put that animal part aside. And let's work. So you know what? I am not trying to just change the people around me. I'm not just trying to change people that look like me or people of color or the white folk that I hang around, the liberal ones. No, baby. I would love eventually to get me a little van. Of course, I'm going to carry me some help. Up into Appalachia and say, hey, let's stop being fooled, baby. Let's stop allowing them to screw us, baby. Let's stop being a part of their game, because that's what it's going to take. We're almost at the end of the show. I hope you get where I'm coming from, because this is an important concept. It is easier to react. It is easier to react in the instant. But when you sit down and have a thought process and think things through, and then also when you decide to stop insanity, what is insanity? Doing things the same way and expecting a different result. Then you can really make a difference. And that is what I'm aiming for. My thing is not to be, oh, nice and screaming and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, when I'm screaming to make a difference. And I'm screaming to be everybody's, to get to everybody. Not one kind, I want to get to everybody. All of us have had, at some point in our life and still in our lives, biases. And the thing about it is, how do you handle them? How do you handle? Yes, Mr. Okay, let me take a little bit of these messages. Yeah, Mr. Ledo, indoctrinated, of course, and I can explain that 1, 2, 3, 4. Your statements make that quite obvious. And Mr. Cisak, there's not one point. You said that I'm misinforming, my dear friend. There's not one point that you can tell me today or any day where I have misinformed any of the folks listening to me. I care too much about the people who follow me, who listen to me, who subscribe to me. I'm talking about subscribing. Folks, please go ahead and go to, it's almost time to go. Please go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right. Please become a supporter. We need your support. It's very inexpensive. I mean, it's a cup of coffee. Please go to politicsdoneright.com if you just want to provide a contribution. But if you want to subscribe, which I would much love for you to do, support something positive. I mean, we give the corporatocracy hundreds of dollars for cable that misinform, hundreds of dollars for cable that create the chaos that we live in right now, hundreds of dollars to do things that harm us. Could we put a few pennies into patreon.com/politics done right? Patreon.com/politics done right. Folks, my name is Egberto Willies. I thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. Love you guys. Love you all. Hey, Ledo, Rene, Perpetua, and everybody else that I can't see right now because it's down my scroll. Even you too, Mike Cisak. You guys are my brothers, and I'm going to continue to work on both Ledo and Cisak and all you guys, okay? And all you guys that think that we are not on your side, which in reality we are. I'll be working with you because you are my brothers, whether you like it or not. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Love you all, and you know how I end this baby. I am, and what is it again? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.